Hey. I've been lying to people all day and telling them we were coming, and now we are actually here. We're live here at Grey's Anatomy with our very good friend Vanessa.
Hello.
Vanessa! And tell us what your title is, my dear.
I am an assistant editor.
Yes, you are. And how long have you been with Grey's Anatomy?
I interned during seasons 7 and 8 during the summers when I was in college, and then I was a PA during seasons 9 and 10, or half of 10. Then I left to get into the union, got into the union, and by some act of God, landed back up here, and so I've been assistant editor for seasons 11 and 12.
And so you've been here a while.
Yeah.
But there's a portion of our world that you missed. So did you watch our show before you came on board in season 7?
Right when the show first came on, actually, I remember my mom telling me that I kind of shouldn't be watching it because it maybe wasn't a show for me.
It was a little too mature for your young eyes.
But I think after a couple seasons had gone by, and I think once I got into college, I went back and caught up on the whole show.
Yeah.
But it's funny because I actually wasn't technically allowed to watch it when it first came on.
So
or it was just advised maybe that I shouldn't.
Yeah. So you and my previous person, I did Olivia, one of our PAs last week, who was like 12 when we first came on the air, and I have a sneaky suspicion you might have been around the same age. So you guys make me feel extraordinarily old, but be that as it may. So tell us a little bit of what exactly does an assistant editor do, and it also kind of feeds into why we're a little bit late today because your job intervened. I mean, your priorities, for God's sake. You can either sit here and talk to me and have fun or do your freaking job. And you chose to do your freaking job. So tell us what your job is.
Basically, my job is a lot of things. Basically, my job is just to keep my editor, Brandi, editing. And we're supporting our editors in any way possible. There's like a technical side of the job and a creative side of the job. So, the technical side is like organizing all the footage and keeping everything together, dealing with all the VFX, and then the creative side is, doing the sound design, helping with scoring, helping with cutting up the scenes, pretty much anything, that involves piecing the show together.
So taking all the elements of it.
So basically from the read-through all the way until we turn over the show and give it to our online people who do all the finishing, I have to be present and invested in the show from start to finish.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, there's actually a lot that I do.
Yes, you do. You surprise yourself. You can totally do your CV off of this.
Yeah.
So I mean, you guys get the elements. I talked to Tammy Ann a while back about how, like, our switch from film to digital impacted us because we were one of the last shows that remained on film for a long time. And I know that you edit non-linearly. You guys are on Avids over here, so it's not like you are on a Motorola. But did that impact you, or was that not really much of a change for you?
For editorial, didn't really change at all. I think the PAs could speak to this, that it just kind of made their jobs easier because they're not waiting as long for the dailies in the morning.
Right.
But in terms of, our workflow, it didn't change at all. Like, we're still getting a bin in the morning with, like, everything they shot the day before. It's the same.
It looks the same now, but let me ask you this, because this is also something I talked to Tammy Ann about. Because we're on digital, not so much on our show, but I know some directors are more inclined to not cut.
Yeah.
Because you're not gonna run out, so they keep going. So do you have longer things to wade through, or has that been pretty much the same?
It's kind of funny because you'll hear the actors sometimes in the dailies be like, "Oh, well, it's digital now. They'll just
keep rolling."
Right. So I think there's a little bit more freedom in that, and also I noticed usually, like, when we were on film, directors, like, you could only print. They only printed what they liked most of the time. And maybe on the show, because our budget's a little more, they were printing, more than that. But now, so there's, like, the circled takes. But now I feel like everything's a circled take. Like, in our script,
so there's
like,
no NG anymore. It's all
everything
good.
has a start. I mean, because we're going to print everything. So,
right. We actually did just have someone ask, what is daily? Do you want to tell people what our dailies are?
Yeah, so dailies, so basically there's 9-10 days of shooting, depending on the episode. And whatever they shoot, say today, we will get all of that tomorrow. So it's just all the raw footage. Our post house syncs all the footage, color times it, and then gives it to us in a bin. And then I have to group all the, like, A/B cams together by scene, and then organize them, go through, look for resets, look for out of sync stuff, look for any weird, crazy things, and then every scene has a bin, and then they're ready to start cutting.
Right. So you take all the puzzle pieces and sort them a little bit, so that when someone's looking for something, they go, oh, there's scene 25, and there's the A camera, and there's the close-ups and all that stuff, so that it's easier to put it all together.
Right. Basically. Yeah, and it's organized in a way where anyone could open up a bin, even if you weren't the editor on the episode, and you could probably at a glance be like, oh, okay, I know what the scene's about, because it's kind of like a storyboard, and everything's in triangles, as the scene progresses. So you can kind of tell what a scene's about just by glancing at a bin. So that's also part of being an assistant editor, is just being extraordinarily organized and making sure everything just is as easy as possible for your editor.
Right. It's kind of, and make it intuitive and easy to find things and that kind of thing.
Right.
And so dailies are basically, as she said, just all of the raw footage. I remember we used to get DVDs of dailies. Do dailies even go out to people anymore? Or do we just go straight to cuts now?
DVDs still go out, but I think it's a way more limited list.
Yeah.
Because I think some people, depending on where they're watching them, like if they're on set and they're getting dailies, it's easier for them to pop in a DVD. But all the dailies are digital, going online too.
Yeah, I was going to say, everything seems to be just accessed via a link or a passcode nowadays.
And that's the same with cuts too. Some people still get DVDs, but mostly it's just sending a link, which is just so much easier. Yeah.
Okay. So so give us a little bit of background. How did you come to this editorial situation?
Well, in school, I was... Okay, well, let's see. At the beginning of school, I was a sociology and Spanish double major, and I was like, I want to be a lawyer, but I really just like the idea of being, like, a lawyer that you see on TV.
A TV lawyer?
And I remember, like, shadowing an attorney one day, and it was, like, one of my most boring days of college, like, to date. Like, it was awful. And then I happened to have the chance to visit this set, like, when I was a junior in college, and I was like, oh, I can work in this world. I don't just have to be entertained by this world. So then I went back to school, changed my major, found the film. There was, like, a film and TV production program.
Can I just say, your parents must have loved it. She goes from being a lawyer to working in...
I never actually even wanted to be... I don't even know why I was interested in law. I think I wanted to be like a parole officer or something, like some crazy... So they were probably actually happier that I didn't go down some crazy path that I didn't even know. So I changed my major, and I got really into documentary, and a lot of documentary is just made in editorial.
Right.
And then also... just by the nature of being a student making films and not knowing what the heck you're doing, you kind of rely on things being made in post, especially in school, because everything's kind of just crap.
Fix it in post.
And you're figuring, because you're learning, So then I got even more into the editing side, and then so during my second internship, I talked to Tom Barg, actually, and I was like, hey, when I was at school this past year, I really got into editing. Would I be able to, like, maybe shadow and post as part of my internship? And so I started shadowing over here, like, 1 day a week, and then I got even more into it. And then, I just kind of decided that's what I wanted to do.
It's a good choice.
Yeah.
Good choice.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So what do you think are some of the must-have skills that you mentioned? Being very organized, obviously. Yeah. What else do you think?
I think just being a person that can have, like, 500 tabs in your brain open at all times and not stress out about that. Mm-hmm. Because, like, we're on 12/17 right now, but, like, we're always working on, like, 2 episodes at once. Like, we just had the read-through for 12/20, so we're already going to start getting footage for that next week, and we haven't even turned over the show.
Right.
And when we were starting 12/17, we were still finishing 12/14. So you kind of have to...
You're a multitasker.
You have to and you have to embrace it. Like, you can't get stressed out by that. You just have to be, like, love the multitasking. I'm kind of a person that likes the adrenaline. Like, I'm probably talking very fast right now. Like, that's just, like, my, like, how I am. So, just being able to handle a lot of different things, and I think also... being able to predict when there's going to be problems before there are problems, and kind of putting out... Because you're, like I said, you're seeing the footage for the first time, so you're the one that's going to notice things in dailies that maybe seems odd, or maybe should be flagged, like, for Lisa or Tamian, who are post-producers, to say, hey, this might be a problem, down the road, we should look at this now. Like, in... what episode? 1208 with the firefighter episode. Casey, who was supposed to have the burned out lung, when we got the dailies, there was a clear bandage over it, but you could see his skin right through, and I was like, that's I thought he was going to have a burned out lung. So I brought it up to Lisa, and I was like, this is odd. And so then that whole thing turned into like 40 VFX, because the bandage then they had to do VFX to make it white so that you couldn't, or else they would have had to, you would have been able to see the lung through. So like stuff like that, where once an episode starts, you just have to be like fully invested in every ounce of that episode and just always be on your toes and try to think about anything that could potentially be a problem.
And we should mention, too, that, we have 3 sets of editors, as you mentioned, and so every third one is you guys, but once you're starting your new one, you are still wrapping up your previous one.
Right.
So it's like you said, you did 17, and now you're waiting on 20 is about to start, and but you're still finishing up 17.
Yeah.
So you can't completely say, discount that. You still have to keep that in your head at the same time, right?
And on that note, that we're every third episode, on top of knowing your own shows, you really also need to know what's happening in between 17 and 20. So it's really your responsibility on your free time during your free time that you never have, to catch up on the other shows and kind of be in the know of like where these character arcs are going. Because another part of being assistant editor, especially on this show, we have the privilege of being able to cut. And so you can't like blindly start cutting scenes if you don't know, the character arcs that have been developing the last couple episodes. Because things on this show change in an instant, and you have to be up to date on everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we should mention, when she's saying that she gets a chance to cut, we obviously have an editor. She is the assistant, but our assistant editors get a chance to cut scenes as well. They aren't just kind of sitting there sorting through rooms and pushing buttons. You actually do have some input in the scenes, which is great.
Right.
And like you said, there's certain beats and certain moments that are going on that need to be, hit upon or furthered or whatever, and you need to know where we've been and where we're going with that. So that's like hugely important.
Yeah.
So all that said, what do you think is the best thing about your gig?
I like that it's the perfect blend of like techie nerdy stuff and creative. Like you're still contributing to the show, and like editors and assistant editors are like a team, and you're really like collaborating, and it's not just me in here pushing buttons and waiting for Brandi to say, okay, we're going to send this cut out. It's like, it's so not that at all. Like, we're always talking about the show, and, she'll give me, say an act to cut, and then she'll give me notes on it, and then I'll do the notes, and then we'll talk about it. And so it's like, it's a mentorship, and
that's a good way to put it, yeah.
Yeah, and that's like the really fun thing about it, because it's like you're constantly learning, and it's constantly changing. So like, we more or less are on a new, like, project or new episode, like, once a month. So it's like we go to the table read, and it's a brand new story with exciting things, and maybe there's new creative challenges, like with the April episode and all the rewinds and stuff. Like that was probably the most like challenging thing for us.
Right. Like, and we should point out you and Brandi did that.
Yeah, that was our
That's
episode.
Why we've got a little bit of it sitting up there just so you yeah.
That was definitely our most, at least for me, and I think for Brandi would say the same thing, like the most fun episode, just because we had so much creative power, and how, in the script, visually they gave us a guide, like it should feel like we're moving backwards like a film strip through through their lives, but we had to concoct an idea about what that was going to look like visually, and then
it's easy for us to say do this, but how do you do that?
Right. And especially because it was going to happen like 25.
We're going to ignore that.
Well, okay. Yeah.
Oh, I think it's Rob.
Is it Rob? Go ahead, answer. It's okay.
Is this Rob? Rob, stop!
That would be Rob Korn, our executive producer, calling to hassle Vanessa.
Well, it's going great.
Hi,
Rob's
Rob.
making sure I don't mess up. Okay, bye!
That's the last time I tell Rob that I'm going over to see somebody.
This is a perfect example, though.
This is a perfect example.
Many things are always happening. You just kind of have to deal with them on the spot.
Oh, God.
I don't remember what we were talking about.
We were talking about 17 and coming up with the ideas.
Yeah, and so there was going to be 25 different rewinds, so we couldn't have something very elaborate, because it would have gotten like obnoxious and like almost boring, just because it would have been so big, and we wanted something more subtle but still had this effect of rewinding and shuffling through their lives. And so we actually had, I think, like 3 different versions of this rewind before Shonda was like, yeah, this is what I like. So that was fun too, even though like I remember one night we kind of just stayed here till like 2 a.m. because we just wanted to figure it out, and she basically said, I don't know what I want, but I'm not sure I like what you have now. And so and sometimes that's how notes go with Shonda. She's she's not really sure yet, but it's our job to kind of come up with something creative and say, how about this, you know?
Right. And to come up with several different versions.
Right.
Right?
And that's the fun part, too, because then you're not just pushing buttons for them, and I get to, you know, play a part in, you know, rewriting the story or whatever.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would you say, what kind of advice could you offer to people who wanted to do this? Other than, obviously, you have to be able to stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning and be creative.
I would say the first thing would be just sitting in an edit bay with someone. I think you don't necessarily need to go to film school. Like, it would help to, like, study, you know, film and TV to some degree in school, but you don't necessarily need to go to film school to be an editorial, but I think it's most important to, like, just sit in an editor's bay, because you just learn so much.
And I have to say, it's one of my favorite places to be, and I always, whenever Rob is cutting, you know, I always come sneaking up here and hang out with you guys, just because I love the idea that you sit there and go, yeah, you know what, if we trimmed, you know, 3 frames out of the front, it's like, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's hugely amazing what you guys do. So.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
And I think, like, there's certain type of people that can't stand sitting behind an editor and watching them edit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it can be a very monotonous thing because, you know, an editor can get stuck on something for like 30 minutes and they're just shuffling back and forth between the same 10 frames, and then you're just trying to find the perfect cut or the perfect music editor or whatever. So I think being in an editor's bay and seeing how they solve problems, because sometimes you get notes and they seem impossible and you just don't want to do them, but if you take a step back and say, okay, how could I actually achieve what they want, you can come up with creative ways to, you know, accomplish something.
And sort of speaking of that, one of the reasons we are so late is you were doing notes, weren't you?
Yes.
So we actually can say, I don't know, we can't really get into spoilery territory.
No.
But that is part of what you do. You had done some stuff, right? So you had put a cutout, or where were you in your process?
Wait, am I allowed to say who directed this episode? Or
Well, let's just say your current episode.
Okay.
You were doing
so we turned over the director's cut. I don't want to say anything.
Yeah, who knows what spoiler?
Yeah,
let's just err on the side of caution here.
And the director's cut goes to Shonda, and then Shonda and Stacy and whoever the writer on the episode, in this case, well, I guess, I don't know if I can say that either. But in any case, the writers and Shonda will send us a script, and their notes will be, you know, intermittently throughout, and then we'll address them, and then send a cut back. So that's what we were working on today.
You had to literally go through the entire script, and you get all the bits, and you work those in. And that actually, because as we said, we were originally thinking we were going to do this at 2, and here we are a couple hours later.
Like,
so
maybe
it's
3.
maybe later.
But I'll just confirm with you.
But it's an excellent example of how much work it entails. You know, someone would say, oh, no, what is that? You know, it's 15, 20 minutes of work. No, it was a couple hours, and then you had to re-output it, and you have to do all those things. And so it is, there's a lot involved in what you guys do. It, like you keep saying, it's not just pushing buttons. There's a lot going on. So, okay, so sorry, I interrupt you, but getting back to sit in a bay, watch what people do.
Yeah, watch what people do and just kind of like take that in. Yeah, I mean, in order to be an assistant editor or an editor on a show like this, you have to be in the union. Like most departments, there's a union. So the reason why I actually left in season 10 was because I wanted to get my days to get into the union. So you have to work for Editors Guild, and it's different for all the different guilds and unions. You have to work 100 days of non-union work in order to gain membership. So for me, those 100 days meant, and the 100 days could really, like, some people get stuck in reality for years because you're not always getting another gig, and reality sometimes is short term.
So whereas we're stuck in unreality.
Right. So maybe you're working like a month on a show, and then it gets canceled, and then you're looking for a job. So 100 days really is only 5 months, but it could take you like 2 years to get those 100 days.
Right.
So when I was working in reality, I worked on Talking Dead and some Comedy Central stuff, and then I worked nights for 5 months, which was awful. I'm a person that wakes up at 5 a.m. every day, like naturally, and so I was working from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. So it took me like, I think 2 months to make myself nocturnal. It was probably the most unhealthy I've ever been in my life, just because like it's like, oh, lunchtime at 1 a.m. like, I'm gonna eat some Doritos. Like, it's just, and I was working in a a 4-story building where no one else was there all night long. So it's just, it was bad, but it was motivating.
But that's almost the description of editing. I mean, we're sitting in a room that has no windows.
Usually it's a lot darker than this.
Yeah, we have the lights up a little bit. So
that much.
So you guys are kind of hermetically sealed up here. So I think you almost, I don't want to say you have to be a loner, but you have to be
You have to like
content in being in a place,
Yeah.
concentrating on the goal, which is to cut the show. You know, it's not, you're not sitting here, you know, drinking wine and having a party. Well, not all the time.
Not all the time. Sometimes.
Not all the time. But it's not it's not as social of a role
No.
as some of the other departments. It can be kind of a solitary thing.
Right. And it's nice, like, on our floor, like, especially editorial, because everyone's, you know, will bounce ideas off each other. You know, oh, can you watch this scene down? So we, you know, we're pretty close. So, like, we'll talk about, like, we have a joke that we always get Joe'd, and Joe's one of our editors. And when Joe comes in your edit bay, like, you can just guarantee you're not going to get work done for, like, an hour.
That's true of Joe going anywhere, actually.
But it's always great conversation. It's
We
always
love
good.
Joe, but it's true.
Yeah.
Nothing gets done with
But
Joe's
actually, I think that's also a good point, because you can't just edit for 12 like, we're on 10-hour, 12-hour days most of the time. Sometimes shorter, depending on what part of the episode we're in. But, like, you can't just work for 10 straight hours. Like, in order to get your creative juices flowing, like, maybe you needed that 3-hour conversation in the morning, and then you're going to start working. Or maybe you need to come in really early and get things done, and then take, like, a really long break in the afternoon to rejuice. So I think that's also a point, is that it can be really social, and you can have these nice, intimate conversations with people, and you know.
But you also have those deadlines, those times when you, no matter what, you have to get it done. Because you've had nights where you guys are sort of, I've come in your office after where there's candy wrappers and nutshells. It's like, oh yeah, that was
it's
about
like, it's like a bad week when like, Brandi will come in the morning and maybe I'm staggered, and like there will be a post-it on my desk and it'll be like, do your dishes. And like there'll be like 5 dishes on the back, because maybe it was just a crazy week. I didn't get a chance to walk down to the damn kitchen, you know?
Because you were in here the entire time, trying to cut 3 seconds out of the show.
Yeah. But it does get crazy like that. But then there's also, you know, weeks where it's a little bit less chaotic, and so that's the time when you can kind of rejuvenate and, like, you know, get everything organized and file things away and clean up, and then it gets crazy again. So.
Well, let me ask you this. This is something like completely out of the blue, but it did just occur to me. As an editor, because you understand pacing and how things go together and different shots and how to tell a story in different ways, are you interested in directing? Is that something that ever crossed your mind? Or are you more enjoying the tail end of it, the assembly, as opposed to the creation?
I think yes and no. Like, no, not right now, but I think in editing, I've learned so much about directing. Just seeing how a director has designed a scene and thinking, oh, I wouldn't have done it this way now that I'm editing it. Like, you know, and sometimes maybe that's hard to see on set, or the other way around. Like, oh, I would have never thought to start the scene this way because the scene before it is ending this way. So I think I've learned a lot about directing, and just knowing, like, what the beat of a scene is. Like, Brandi will always say, like, there's only one beat in a scene. You can't have 7 beats. So, like, knowing what the beat is of the scene and whose scene is it. So I think those are the same principles in editing would be applied to directing.
Right. And many editors, and many of our editors have actually become directors, and you know, Edward Alice and Susan Vale and Greenspan. So I always thought, you know, it's a similar muscle that you use, but it's not quite the same, you know, but they inform each other, I think. I think, you know, some editors make good directors and some directors make good editors and vice versa.
Right.
And some just don't, you know, because they just can't think the way the other person thinks at all. But
I think down the line it'd be interesting to explore that, but I think right now I'm, like, so focused on just, like, becoming a good editor and learning that I don't want to, like, start dipping my hands in a bunch of different
get distracted by other
that
stuff.
You're not even, like, honing the one skill that you should be honing.
Right. We just did have a question asking what we cut on. Are you on Avid? What are you
Avid,
on?
yes.
Big old Avids,
Avid
yes.
Media Composer.
Yes. Which is nonlinear editing, which for those who don't know, I mean,
timeline of the J-April movie.
Right. Back in the day, when I first started out, it was still on Moviola, which is whenever you see kind of an old movie, you see them looking at that little flickering machine and real films.
I actually have an old...
Did you? Oh, you got a cutter.
Yeah.
You got a negative cutter there.
This is a funny story that I came across this, but Corey, who works in production, his grandpa went to a garage sale and brought back this.
That's almost like from the silence or something.
Yeah,
period,
so
I mean, that's amazing.
He came up walking to post one day, and I see him pass my bay, and this just goes out of the corner of my eye, and the nerd in me was like, where did you get that, and can I have it? He's like, yeah, you have it, sure. I'm like, okay, thanks.
That is very cool.
Brandi actually has another old piece of equipment.
Yeah. But as you were saying, you know, back in the day when they actually used film, you literally cut the film.
Right.
But now on Fabulous Avids and stuff, it's, you know, nonlinear, and you can try different things and change things around, and it's a whole other way of doing things. But it's very cool. Okay, is there anything else we have to say? Anything else you want to tell our viewers at home? That's non-spoilery?
Non-spoilery. I don't know. I really love my job. It's great. I have a lot of fun. Yeah.
So here we go. Someone's asking, how long does it take to edit an episode? Well, you're editing
that's
as
a
we're
good
going,
question.
as they're shooting. The work comes out every day, but you know, expand on that for us a bit.
So say there's 10 days of shooting, so we get 10 days of dailies, and then depending on how tight the schedule is, we usually get 3 additional days to fully assemble a show, which means I sound design the whole show. All of the scenes have been cut, all 6 acts, so maybe that's like 50 scenes. Music has been done, like songs, score, all that type of stuff, and then that's our editor's cut. So then we turn our editor's cut over to the director. The director comes up and works with us for like 4 days, change some things, try out maybe a new song, or try out recutting a scene in a way that favors someone else, or using different takes, whatever. And then, so that's like another 4 days. Then we turn that cut over to Shonda, and then we work with her for 4 days, or more, depending, of course, on how, like right now, our schedule's getting a lot tighter because production is getting a lot closer to air dates, so we don't have all of that leisure time.
Yeah, the wiggle room disappears
still a
very
tiny bit of-
quickly.
there's still a tiny bit of pad right now. We're pretty comfortable, but it gets pretty tight. Like by 23 in the finale, like we're kind of done for.
Yeah.
Like there's no room to spare. And then Shonda will, you know, sign off on everything. We send it to the network and the studio. They send notes that are more so like legal things, like we can't see boob there, you know, the blood
or Greek that out.
Yeah,
there's a logo, those kinds of things. Yeah.
And then the day after that, or sometimes the same day, we lock the show, and lock means we're done touching picture. Like there's not one more thing being changed, because then we send it to our online people who are using that final cut assembly to do all the finishing sound, all the finishing color, putting in all the VFX,
making it purty,
doing the laying in the ADR, because a lot of times, you know, it's just my voice doing April, and you know, if we have to redo lines or whatever, so we replace all the temp stuff, and then our composer will, you know, he's writing cues, so he's sending cues to us. So then the online process is going on while we're already starting dailies for our next show.
Right.
And then maybe like a week and a half, 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half after we turn it over to them, we go to the dub stage in Burbank at Westwind, and we watch the whole thing for like the last time, and then we give notes, you know, little things like on levels. It's never like anything, never with picture, just because like it's basically all sound. So we're like, maybe the dialogue was competing with music there, or you know, whatever it was, and then the mixers are there, and then we all kind of work together to deliver it, and then it airs on TV.
It's so easy. It's so simple.
It's like no work at all.
And of course, sometimes you have to cut it down to time as well if we're over.
Yeah.
When does that happen during
Producer's cut?
Producer cut is when that happens.
Yeah. So the magic number is 42:19:10. So the show has to be 42 minutes, 19 seconds, 10 frames. Right. It can be under, but rarely. Like it has to be
very rarely.
It has to be on the frame. Like it doesn't have to be, but it kind of has to be.
Yeah.
And then also acts can't be any shorter than 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So, like in this show, actually, we have a short act. So we're like, hey, Shauna, by the way, we have a short act. And sometimes she'll just put the show in a blender, rearrange scenes. Mm-hmm. Maybe now after she's seen the cut, it makes sense to restructure it and put scenes in a different order. So we do that. And then, you know, the writers and Shauna will give us line lifts to get the show to time, or, you know, be like, this scene's 30 seconds and we don't really need it, or that storyline's not important anymore now that we're writing other episodes, so it'll get yanked.
Or just move to another episode.
Or move to another episode that we have
that poor
done.
Doc Knocker.
Oh, gosh.
It just moved all over the place.
Yeah, that one storyline lived in like 4 different episodes at one point. It's finally, I think it landed in an episode. Yeah,
it did finally air.
Yeah, it will finally. Yeah. That's how the shows get to time. Sometimes, I don't know what else there is to say.
Yeah, no, that covers it. You did very well. Okay, I think we pretty much covered it. We should probably let you, get back to work again since we've been hassling you all day. Can we come up? Can we come up? Can we do it now? Can we do it now? So thank you very much, Vanessa, for taking time out of your day to talk to us and talk to everybody. And we'll let you get back to it because we'll be seeing. Let's see. Well, you did Jolex. No, you did. You did J-Pro.
Yeah,
12. And so
12-14 airs in 2. Yeah, 12 episodes. Yeah,
so
two.
Next one.
Yeah,
so everybody loves it or hates it. They
Always my fault.